What's up, everyone? My name is Jorge. I'm here with Pearl. Introduce you to our friend Mark. And today we're actually going to go through how to AI. Today's topic is going to be prompting. But before we get into it, Mark's going to tell us about himself, who he is, and what he does. So, Mark, take it away.
Hey all, I'm Mark Quinn, head of AI operations at Pearl. Who I am in short is a serial technologist operations guy that somehow stumbled down the AI rabbit hole so far that you might as well call me Alice at this point. And I ended up at Pearl leading AI operations and AI transformation, rewiring the company, the people, everything with AI.
That's awesome. Mark, I think you have one of the most interesting stories of like how you broke into tech and how you broke into AI. If you want to touch on that, I think the people would love to hear that.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of my conviction about where AI is headed is driven by where it started for me, which was essentially being losing my job to AI. I AIified myself out of my own job. I was at a different startup, and we were working on an AI technology within the healthcare space to transcribe medical conversations. And when GPT-4 came out, GPT 3.5 was good, but GPT-4 was sort of a watershed moment, at least for this application. It made the 3,000 plus person operation I was supposed to ramp up kind of moot almost overnight. And it took a few months for us to totally wrap our heads around it, but pretty quickly we were ramping the operation down to five agents. And eventually the entirety of the operation was essentially AIified and mostly automated. Now, that was a very specific use case and application, but it did result in me standing around wondering what my role was. And so decided to go our separate ways. And from there, I kind of took that as sort of an existential moment, a wake up call to realize, wow, this AI thing isn't coming. It is here. And then went on sort of a journey of self learning and discovery to again go as far down the rabbit hole as I could, and ended up sort of retraining, reskilling myself. And now, instead of being in a role where I'm surrounded by senior leaders executing large scale operations, I'm in a role literally surrounded by computer screens and agents and robots executing just as much work.
What was the first AI tool you touched?
ChatGPT. ChatGPT was the first tool that I ever really became familiar with. And then from there, I remember early on when I started to discover sort of the power of a ChatGPT, and in particular, by giving it the case that I was given as part of the interview process for the role I was in at the time. And that case took me the better part of 3 months for me and my team to crack and figure out the staffing of this operation. ChatGPT 4 spit out the answer in about 2 minutes, and so I started with ChatGPT, but from that moment realized the capabilities were far beyond just what I was experiencing with that one use case. So I ended up actually prompting ChatGPT to build out a table, a matrix of use cases across all domains of life: cooking, children, taxes, finances, and then professionally, project management, analysis, strategy. And for each, I had it explain to me what would a sort of use case look like if I was using Google search, the old Google search, and what would it look like if I was using AI optimally. And from there, I learned a lot more about how to leverage ChatGPT, and then also a wide array of other tools, depending on the application.
That's awesome. I mean, it all depends on what vertical you're in, right? If you're a creative, I think I am not a graphic designer. By no means. However, when I do work with a graphic designer, I do use ChatGPT just to mock up some samples, some examples that we want to follow, or a vibe we actually want to go through for social posts or whatever it may be. The one thing that I've learned, it comes down to prompting. Prompting is so important. I mean, you can't just tell GPT, for example, make me an image. It's too vague. It's too GPT will start searching and try to build and invent things, and it's just not going to work like that. And the big part of this conversation that we're having is we want to teach people how to prompt, the do's and don'ts. But before we get into prompting, I have one non-technical question for you, Mark. And it's something that's been coming up on Twitter. I mean, YouTube's Twitter account even tweeted this the other day. Do you consider a hot dog a sandwich?
Consider a hot dog a sandwich? I gotta be honest, I don't think I've ever attempted to define what a sandwich is or isn't. I'm gonna go with no. I think a hot dog's in a category of its own. The bread is not separated into two pieces. I suppose sometimes a fresh cut loaf is not separated into two pieces, so maybe that doesn't count. I feel like a hot dog is really a category of its own. So I'm gonna go with no. I'm gonna go with no.
It's a good take. It's a hot take. I definitely agree. Just had to, bring in a little joke before we get into the seriousness of this. Mark, take it away. Teach us how to prompt. If you want to share your screen, potentially maybe a GPT window, that'd be amazing. But yeah, take it away, Mark.
So first, you're right. A lot of getting real utility out of AI, I have found, comes down to understanding how to work with AI effectively. And I would say actually the same is true for humans with people. And we learn how to communicate. We learn things like eye contact and giving the other person a chance to engage in the conversation, ask questions, clarifying. And the most important strategy or advice that I give to people, and I think the most impactful advice I give to people in asking or answering the question, how do I prompt better? How do I use AI better? Is forget AI. Forget AI. Instead of focusing on AI as a tool you need to figure out how to use correctly, forget AI. Imagine the world's best expert in whatever it is you need help with just came in and sat down next to you and talk to them as though you really are leaning into that analogy of the world's best expert is sitting in the room with you. And as soon as you start to really imagine that and apply that all to the chat box, you'll find, most people find, that what they say, the way they interact, starts to fundamentally change. And they stop prompting like it's a search engine and they start collaborating more like it's an expert. And in fact, if you go back to one of the anecdotes I was sharing earlier, in that early interaction with ChatGPT and asking it, hey, how do I get the most out of AI? The difference between a Google search, a basic leverage or use of AI, and optimal leverage, the difference every time in those last two columns was the difference between telling and asking. It was the difference between telling the AI to do something as a singular command and asking it and collaborating with it. And the more that you can lean into this idea, this metaphor of AI, imagine the world's best expert just sat down, the more you're going to get out of it. I'll explain a little bit more what I mean. Let's say, for example, you mentioned earlier that you might need help with design. So you certainly could go to ChatGPT, and in a minute, maybe I will, and we can see what will happen. I could go to ChatGPT, and why don't I go ahead and share my screen, and we can take a look at this together, and I'll explain what I mean at the same time. So I can go to ChatGPT, and I can say, and I'm going to go ahead and reduce this down to medium just for purposes of demonstration, and I can say, make me an image for my company. And it will immediately start to do what I've asked it to do. Now, as I demonstrate this, I want you to keep in mind that I'm using the latest version of ChatGPT. So not even what we were talking about 2-3 years ago. I'm using the latest frontier model, and you're still going to see a massive difference in the result here. And this is a sort of a live demo, so we'll see how this goes. But first, I'm commanding it, and I say, make me an image for my company Pearl. And that's me telling the AI to do something. Now, for a second, let's forget AI. Let's forget AI and instead imagine the world's best designer just walked in the room and sat down next to me. And they're here waiting. They're ready to help me design an image for my company Pearl. The same thing I just asked AI to do. But my question to you and to the audience would be, is that what you would tell the world's best designer sitting next to you? Would you simply say, make me an image for my company Pearl? Of course not. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? Instead, immediately we would say, hi, And I'm gonna now talk to the AI. I use a tool called Whisperflow AI, and it's much easier for me to interact with AI through speech to text instead of typing. So I'm gonna talk to it, and you're gonna see that appear in a second. It said, now I'm gonna approach it like it's the world's best designer sitting next to me. I'm just gonna imagine there's a person here. Hey, I have been tasked with creating an image for my company, Pearl.com, or justanswer.com formally. And I would love your help to figure out how to design the perfect image. And I'm imagining this would be sort of a splash image for our corporate slide deck. Maybe the first slide or the first image that people can use as we begin and end most, say, external corporate presentations with. I really have no idea what to do. I'm not a designer, but I would love whatever help you can offer. Is that, I don't know, do you understand what I'm trying to do? And is that something you can help with? I don't know, what information do you need? Now, it may seem like for the purposes of this podcast, I'm kind of playing a part, but I'm not. I'm doing what I do every day, constantly, all day with AI. Forget AI. Interact with AI like it's the world's best expert in whatever you need help with. And you're going to see the sort of difference I'm about to show you here. And immediately, there's a big difference, which is that the AI is not executing. When I told it to make an image, it did. Now I'm asking for help. And so it is now beginning to collaborate with me. And it's given a bunch of information here, but it's saying, here's what I need from you. So and it's saying, here's what I would aim for if you don't want to tell me anything. And I'm going to say, for purposes of demonstration, I'm just going to say, well, go ahead and go with your gut, research the company and, maybe give me 3 options. I'll do that now. For purposes of moving quickly, and it's easier for me to react to something visual, maybe go ahead and go with your basic design call that you came up with. Research the company, and if there's 1 or 2 key questions, let me know. But otherwise, maybe surface 2 or 3 visuals, and from there I can maybe guide further. Would that work? Again, I'm not responding like it's a search engine and that it needs to be told exactly what to do. Instead, I'm saying, you're the world's best designer. I don't know. I don't know. Give me a few options and let me look at that. Since I'm not a designer, maybe it'd be easier to start. And immediately, again, you're seeing the difference in the interaction. You're seeing the AI understand who I am, what I'm trying to do. It's asking clarifying questions. It's assuming the expertise required for the task at hand. And it's the biggest difference is collaborating with me instead of just doing whatever I tell it to do. So far in this quick example, I'm showing you 2 key things and sort of implicitly a third. And so here now we're getting a very different image. It is sort of, you can see, still latching onto this first thing that it came up with, but maybe that's okay. But it is now starting to incorporate some of these other elements of the company that actually have to do with our company and what we're about, because it's actually done some research. And so you're seeing the difference in telling versus collaborating. So there are 2 big things that we're demonstrating so far. First is forget AI. Forget AI, imagine the world's best expert, and whatever you need help with, just walked in the room and sat down next to you. And the more that you can lean into that and interact with the AI the way that you would that human expert, the more result and more effective and efficient and more on point result you're going to get. The second thing that I'm showing you here is the idea of collaborating with the AI instead of commanding the AI. Collaborate, ask, explain, give it your context, explain who you are. And then that leads into the third thing that I'm implicitly demonstrating. I did not explicitly do this time, but there is a certain way I end almost every single initial interaction with AI. Once I've explained to the expert sitting down next to me what it is that is in my head immediately, I almost always end with 3 things. 1, please summarize your understanding. 2, please identify the expertise that we need to help us collaborate on this issue. And 3, ask me any clarifying questions that you need to have answered to solidify your understanding and optimize your support. It may seem like magic words, but it's totally not. Forget AI. Just imagine the world's best expert sitting here. What would you do after you finish your verbal diarrhea and your interactions? You would almost certainly, most people would naturally say, hey, before I go any further, can you summarize your understanding? Can you let me know, is there any additional support, expertise, or information you need? And let me know what clarifying questions I can answer. And so the third thing that I do to optimize my prompting is I end almost every initial interaction with those 3 key points. Summarize your understanding, identify the core expertise that we need to help advise us, and 3, let me know what clarifying questions you have to solidify your understanding and optimize the support. So with that, I am going to pause, Jorge, and say, hey, where do you want to go next? But that is kind of the initial keys to the AI prompting kingdom I give most people. And if you just do those 3 things, you will dramatically improve your prompting and your AI experience.
No, I mean, that was an amazing demonstration, live demo. It was great. I mean, the key things that I picked up as I always say, forever a student, never a master. I'm always learning. Every day I'm learning, and I learned something today. The big thing, the big connection for anyone that's beginning or just needs a refreshment on how to prompt is commanding will lead to a result. And just keep in mind, AI cannot predict what you have in your mind, which is why the conversation is really important in order for the AI to get some context, background, which then leads to collaboration. And the collaboration will then lead to the result that's close to what's in your mind. AI can't read minds. However, it can predict and try to think of what you're actually thinking about. No, this is an amazing demonstration.